Okay, welcome. It's time to start, so we will do that. My finger keeps getting stuck on that thing. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, including those viewing our live broadcast. My name is Dr. Doug Kelley. It's good to be with you, and it's good to have you here. Tonight we are going to have several interesting topics. I'm going to be talking about the power and magic of belief as my segment. Dr. Vicki Hunter will be talking about the topic when children talk about past lives. And then we have a guest speaker tonight, Dr. Pieter Elsen. He will be discussing life between lives, spiritual regression. So that is our lineup for tonight. The Spirit of Life service is a weekly service and educational program of the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism. Our mission is to explore and empower the human spirit as well as to explore science and spirituality. In addition to this weekly service, we have several educational programs, and they're available on our website at metaphysicalhumanism.org. To begin the service, I'd like to do our normal thing, read our 9 principles of belief, which is very brief. Number 1, as sentient and evolving human beings, we not only believe in practicing and living by the principle do no harm, but also in the principle of do right, thus enhancing the vibrational level of humanity. Number 2, we believe in the indomitable power of the human spirit to ultimately triumph in the face of any dilemma. The answers we seek already exist within us. We invoke and exert the counselor and guru within. Number 3, we believe that we alone are responsible for and capable of solving human social problems, and believe the roots of those solutions lie in exploring, understanding, and empowering the human condition. Number 4, we embrace the differences that make all human beings unique, recognizing that we all come from star material and are therefore equal, irrespective of heritage, beliefs, gender, or gender preference. One planet, one race, one ancestry, one destiny. Number 5, rather than a supreme being, we recognize and honor the divine energy that exists in all living things. Number 6, we believe the nature of a human being encompasses both a physical and spiritual aspect, and that human consciousness survives the death of the physical body in a coherent fashion. Thus, death opens a new chapter of life and conducts the individual into a higher state of existence. Number 7, we believe in self-acceptance, self-responsibility, and respect for free will. And these 3 synergistically create the goal of self-completeness. Number 8, we believe in the value of practical education in metaphysics, metapsychology, and life skills as a means of empowering the human spirit and enhancing the human condition. We maintain an open but grounded mind to potential realities as yet undescribed by science. And number 9, we believe that discovering the true nature of consciousness and human existentialism will ultimately have a positive impact on human evolution and peaceful coexistence. And for more information on these 9 principles of belief, please visit metaphysicalhumanism.org. As far as our first segment goes on empowering the spirit, it's going to be, again, about the power and magic of belief. This topic of belief is actually a rather fascinating topic. We probably don't give it a whole lot of thought at times, but when you really start looking into it, it is very fascinating. In fact, it's a fascinating anthropological study. If you think about cultural anthropology, why people do what they do, social conventions, things like that, all of these things are shaped by belief. All we have to do is look at the news, right? We see stuff going on in the world, all driven by belief. It's really rather astounding when you really get into it and just get to understand how deeply belief affects our everyday life. For example, billions of dollars are spent every year by advertisers, right? What are they trying to do? Shape our belief, right? Convince us that their product is the best or does this or does that. And that's all it is. I mean, salespeople, they're trying to manipulate beliefs. They're trying to show how their product will take care of a problem or satisfy a challenge, that sort of thing. Millions of people seek out psychologists, therapists, counselors. Why? to help them change beliefs. And of course, as in past services, we've talked about the need for a healthy self-esteem and how most people could use a self-esteem boost, and that's a big part of it. So that self-belief is an aspect of this, and that's why we see them. Even hypnotists, hypnotherapists do that. When you look at it, belief is arguably the most powerful and potent force in the universe. Now, that's a bit of a bold statement, isn't it? A lot of times we think, really? It's that powerful? Well, think about it for a minute. Belief has started every war fought in the history of humanity. It's responsible for all of our successes or failures. Let that slowly simmer for a moment. Wherever we're at right now, belief, in one way or another, has driven it, is responsible for it. Belief at one time killed many alleged witches, and during the Inquisition, many thousands of innocent people with contrary beliefs. We even see that going on right now in the Middle East, don't we? People are being killed because they believe differently. Some of us have lost all friends and family that we once had. Why? Because we no longer believe the way they do. So we're shunned, put out. Belief once told us we could not fly, then belief told us we could, so we did. So you can see how belief impacts our lives. In fact, John Stuart Mill, a 19th century British philosopher, put it very succinctly when he wrote, and think about this making sense, one person with a belief is equal to 99 who only have interests. You see, belief is that powerful. That's why we see a lot of the power from these cults, from these different religious movements, even in politics. You've got this belief at work. And when you can get people to buy into your vision and believe it, now you've got power, or at least they do. We are indeed the sum of our beliefs, and our beliefs either free us or they imprison us. We could get into disabling beliefs. Perhaps we'll touch on that in a little bit. Let's talk about the nature of belief. A belief is obviously something that is accepted as true. It may or may not be true, but if we think it's true, we believe it to be true, then it is true for us, correct? And I also want to mention as I go along here, if anybody has any questions, let me know. If anybody wants to ask questions in the broadcast land, just type them in the chat room, and Michael will let me know and I'll address them. Do you have any questions? Okay. Okay. Our beliefs are based on our version of reality. May or may not be real. We may continue to believe despite evidence and experience to the contrary. You ever seen somebody like that? You can show them the facts. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. That's also prevalent in religion. Samuel Butler, a 19th century novelist, wrote, "Belief, like any other moving body, follows the path of least resistance." The need to believe is so strong in humanity and human beings that denial can result. Denial is essentially the unhealthy belief that contrary to reality, something is either true or untrue. So if something's true and we don't believe it's true, but it in fact is true, we are in denial, right? Denial usually carries some kind of secondary gain. You ever heard of secondary gains? Now we're getting into the territory of cognitive dissonance too, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But denial, there's usually a secondary gain, but my definition of denial is lying to oneself to evade responsibility. Think about that. Lying to oneself to evade responsibility. Now let's just pause for a moment. Think about that in your own life. Are you in denial about something? Has somebody said something you didn't want to hear, but maybe some part of you knows it's true? Lying to yourself to evade responsibility, because if you accept it, you might have to change, or you might have to do something that you don't want to do. Something to think about. So, an aspect of denial, as I just mentioned a second ago, an aspect of denial with secondary gains is called cognitive dissonance. The word dissonance simply means disagreement or conflict. So cognitive dissonance means a conflict in your cognition, conflict in your reasoning. And it can be prevalent too. In fact, the dictionary defines cognitive dissonance as the anxiety that results from simultaneously holding contradictory or otherwise incompatible attitudes, beliefs, or the like. So if we're conflicted over something, we rationalize it to feel better, and it's, again, usually due to secondary gains. I'll give you some examples, real-life examples. And before I give you an example, let me give you another concept of it. Have you ever had this happen to you, or known somebody this has happened to? They want something or like something a lot, but when it becomes obvious that they cannot have it, they turn against it and start criticizing it. That's cognitive dissonance. If I am in a bad relationship, and this happens so often in addictive relationships, alcoholic relationships, where the codependent, the non-alcoholic or the non-addict, will remain in an abusive, toxic relationship. Why? For secondary gains. They may have no marketable skills. They may be stuck. They might have kids at home that they have to take care of. So they endure the abuse. Why? Well, secondary gains. If they leave, they won't know what to do. They won't know how to make a living. They won't know how to support their kids. And that scares them. And so there's the denial. There's the lying to yourself to evade responsibility. And that's cognitive dissonance. There are a lot of folks like this in cults. Ask me how I know. I came from one. I spent 40 years in one. I left it in 1999. And I left everybody behind. And of course now they're not in my life anymore. People I love, still love and care about. But that's their choice. I'm far better off. And they would be too if they left. And if you by chance are listening to this, listen carefully. It's so much better out here. And all this stuff that you're fearful of, it's not true. It's a lie. So there, I said my piece to people who might stumble on this. All right. In cults, you have a lot of cognitive dissonance. There are people who, on some level, know it's a bunch of baloney. Notice how I said baloney instead of another word, because I don't cuss on the stage much. It's a lot of baloney, but they're stuck, because if they admit it, if they come out of denial that they don't believe it, they stand to lose everything in their world. Everything. Very similar to the Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe you're familiar with that, where it's from Stockholm, Sweden, back in the 70s, where a bank robbery took place. They took several hostages, and the hostages began to, out of fear of their survival, they begin to side with the bank robbers and essentially fight the authorities to rescue them because they were in fear of their survival. Similar thing with cognitive dissonance. You've got people who believe that if they accept the reality of their feelings or whatever, then they'll lose everything. So what do? They internalize it. That's why you see a lot of depression, alcoholism, things like that, and some of the other physical illnesses that manifest. I myself had migraines for 15 years of my life, and some of them were so bad I was afraid I wouldn't die. Really, they were that bad. When I left the cult, Jehovah's Witnesses, by the way, the migraines magically disappeared. I haven't had one since. Interesting, isn't it? There are things like that that can manifest in us because of that cognitive dissonance, because of that belief, because of what we believe or don't believe. Here's another example. This is from Wikipedia, and I'll just read it because it's short, but it makes a good point. The most famous case in the early study of cognitive dissonance was described by Leon Festinger who apparently coined the term back in 1956. And others in the book, When Prophecy Fails, the authors infiltrated a group that was expecting the imminent end of the world on a certain date. The believers met at a predetermined place and time, believing they alone would survive the earth's destruction. I grew up with that stuff. The appointed time came and passed without incident. I also grew up with that stuff. These folks faced acute cognitive dissonance. They had been the victim of a hoax? They wondered. Had they donated their worldly possessions in vain? Most members chose to believe something less dissonant. The aliens had given Earth a second chance. And the group was now more empowered to spread the word, Earth spoiling must stop. The group dramatically increased their proselytizing despite the failed prophecy. That's cognitive dissonance at work. It's too much to realize that you've been wrong all those years. And that's also keeps people stuck in these bad beliefs. All right. Real briefly, there's another aspect of belief that I'll mention here out of in the interest of being a little bit thorough, although it's difficult to cover everything about belief in 20 minutes. And it's a concept called a leaf. A leaf. Not belief, but a leaf. It's the concept, let me just explain it this way. Have you ever been somewhere like on a cliff or near a cliff or at the top of a building and they've got a place to look out and see the landscape or the cityscape, and maybe you're on a transparent floor and you look down there? Well, part of you knows you're safe, but the other parts of you are going, oh, you know what I mean? That's an leaf. Have you ever watched a TV show that you found very touching? You found tears streaming down your eyes, while at the same time you know these characters are fictional. That's an leaf. Just saying. Okay, regarding belief, it is entirely possible to neither believe nor disbelieve. Now think about this too. When you believe in something, you obviously believe in it. You think it's true. But if you disbelieve in something, you believe in the opposite. Why? Because belief and disbelief are two sides of the same coin. If I disbelieve in something, that means I believe in something else, doesn't it? But it is entirely possible to neither believe nor disbelieve in something. Take where this all came from, creation. Where did it come from? Well, religionists say God created it. The atheists say it just evolved. Which one is right? I have no idea. That's what an agnostic is. You know, so I can't make a determination until I have more data. And that is basically approaching a matter with no preconceived ideas. This is especially important for some of our students who are learning anomalous investigation, ufology, cryptozoology, things like that. You don't want to go into that stuff with preconceived notions. It's equally important for our spiritual counselors and life coaches. You don't want to assume anything about your clients. You know, get the facts. Don't go into preconceived notions. One other point that's an interesting take is it's been said that, well, let me make this point. When we have a belief and when that belief comes to fruition, there's action involved, right? We usually act on it, especially if it's a strong belief. So if I say that belief is the most potent force in the universe, well, if that belief never results in any action, then it's impotent, right? It's a moot point. So would it be said that action then is the most potent force in the universe rather than belief? And the answer to that is no, because before an action can occur, there has to be a belief. There has to be a thought, a belief about it. And here's another thing. We can act by not acting on something. Take this scenario. You're walking down a inner city street. Somebody's being mugged off to the side. You keep on walking because you made a deliberate decision not to get involved. There's a lot of people who don't get involved, right? Did they do any harm by not getting involved? Perhaps not, but did they do the right thing? No. That's why our principles of belief: do no harm, do right. Because do no harm is not always enough. It has to be followed up. So we can act by not acting, but belief still drives our actions. Here's another one, another argument for action being the biggest one. Some people say, well, what about religious people? People often act contrary to their religious beliefs. Aren't actions more powerful than words? That kind of thing. Or the action more powerful than the belief? And the answer is no. I contend that a person never acts contrary to their beliefs. Let that one slowly simmer for a moment. A person never really acts contrary to their beliefs. Even if they do it, they may not want to do it, but they must believe that there's some benefit to it. Because remember the first rule of human nature: people don't do anything they don't see a benefit in doing. So this all begs a question, and I realize how I put that. It may not be academically correct, but I said it anyway. This begs the question: what are your beliefs doing for you? What are your beliefs doing for you? Are your beliefs unhealthy? Are they controlling your life in some unhealthy way? For you. And this is a personal decision. This is not one of judgment. This is something that we all have to decide on for ourselves, because we're all on our own path. Are unhealthy beliefs causing problems in your relationship? When you change your mind, you change your world. You've probably heard that quote before. If you want your outside world to change, you got to change your inside world first. That means changing your beliefs, and it usually starts with your beliefs about you. Are you in a situation that you feel stuck in? I've been there. Here's a little nugget that I'm going to share with you that could be perhaps worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you. If you think about that, if you feel stuck, sometimes the solution you're looking for lies outside of your belief system. Sometimes the solution you're looking for lies outside of your belief system. So consider that. I was stuck in an alcoholic marriage for 18 years and I couldn't leave. Why? Because God hates a divorcing. If I left, I would have lost everything that was important to me. My friends, my family, my position as an elder. That all brought meaning to my life. Well, when it got to the point where the pain was worse, the pain of remaining the same was worse than the pain of changing, I changed. And the solution prior to that was not within my belief system. It was outside of it. It was only until I went outside my belief system and changed my beliefs, really analyzed what I was doing and what I was believing, that a change could come about. And it was a very beneficial change. It was life-saving. One last area about beliefs is our general beliefs in the area of metaphysics. And when I say the area of metaphysics, I mean all that stuff that's, that we're looking at. Psychic phenomena, paranormal phenomena, consciousness, all the anomalous sciences, cryptozoology, ufology, and all that. What are our beliefs with that? Reincarnation's another one. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't believe in any of that stuff. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is make sure that if you believe it, that you have a compelling basis for that belief. Last week I talked about the basis, the compelling basis for life after death. Do we go on? Well, nobody knows. Nobody can prove it objectively, but we have compelling and rational evidence that, yeah, we do. And there was a discussion on that. And if you didn't see that program last week, it's in the video archives on metaphysicalhumanism.org. It will take you to a YouTube video. So ponder that. What are your beliefs doing for you? And if you need to adjust your beliefs, if you need to get rid of the denial, stop lying to yourself to evade responsibility, do it. Do it because that's the thing for you to do. It's the right thing. It's your path. You can do anything you want on your road, on your journey. Just do no harm. But otherwise, you can believe or disbelieve in whatever you want. When we don't look at this objectively, when we don't remain grounded, and that's the key here, remain grounded. When we don't remain grounded, we're only limiting our own spiritual growth, our own understanding. There are not answers to every question that we can ask, but that's not going to keep us from trying, is it? Say no. Good answer. All right, are there any questions from anyone here in the live audience or in the broadcast audience? No heavy questions, huh? Rats, I can't give you a heavy answer then. Okay, thank you for your attention to that topic. Let's see, what do we got coming up next? We've got Psychic Perspective with Dr. Vicki Hunter. She is going to be talking about when children talk about past lives. Maybe you've known a child that's done that, or you've heard stories anyway. It's an interesting aspect, so we will give our attention to Dr. Vicki Hunter as she discusses when children talk about past lives. Dr. Vicki, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here again. Nice to see you. Nice little group. And we've been busy in the chat room, too.
For the benefit of our live audience, we can now hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. Thanks. Well, I'll just take it from there. We've been busy in the chat room talking about your comments, Dr. Kelley, about beliefs, and which is a perfect segue into what I'd like to address today, because it's really about whether or not you believe in reincarnation and whether or not you believe your children when they're telling you stories that are perhaps outside your belief system. And this happens a lot, actually. You know, kids are talking about odd things or other stories and relating to other times and when they used to be somebody else. And I happen to know that in this day and age, kids are being medicated for such things. And I actually hear that a lot. When I was young and talking about other times and places, and when my kids were growing up talking about when they used to be somebody else with a different mom, and yes, we had those conversations, you know, we would, I was just thought to be a little bit possessed. And my kids, thankfully, we could have really open discussions about when they used to be somewhere else in another time and place and helping them ground into this lifetime. But let's back up for a second and talk about beliefs. If we address it in another way of quantum physics that claims that everything is happening in the now, that we live on multiple dimensions, there is that possibility, theoretically a possibility, that we are existing simultaneously in other worlds that we just perceive as a linear time, because we live in a linear reality of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, a different lifetime of the past, but there could also be a different lifetime of the future, which historically has been claimed a lot, going back even to Da Vinci. Who's to say that Da Vinci wasn't recalling future lives into his then present? It's all actually very plausible if you think about it. Fact is, we live in a linear timeline. We're here now, and we can easily have recollections that we believe are in the past. So what is the point? Well, I think it's an accumulation of a soul energy. I think it's an identification of the self in different aspects and different layers. But again, it's really important to come back into the here and now. Acknowledging and feeling it's more casual than stressful actually helps it to kind of be okay. And as long as somebody is okay and not fighting that, they're not getting into that stress. And we don't have conflicting belief systems, you know, with maybe secondary gains because parents don't want to think their kids are nuts. I mean, it's entirely possible, right? When I have worked with kids, because not only have I raised my own kids, I have now grandchildren, when I've worked with a lot of other children who have talked about other times and places, I just ask them questions. I just simply, well, what was your name then? And where was that? And, well, that's really interesting. And then I just slip into, well, what did you do in school today? Because to that reality, when you're very young in that perspective, it's just little snips. It's just little glimmers of it. You can easily go on the internet, and especially on YouTube, and there's a huge number of documented cases of children who have had some pretty astounding recollection. And it's actually been pointed out the parents even take the children on trips to where they used to live and introduced to the people they used to know. And there's actually lots of really fascinating documented stories about this. So it's really worth somebody's while, no matter what you believe, to investigate. Talk to other people who have had similar experiences. Do some research. I mean, this world of the internet has changed our reality hugely. We can get information at the tip of a finger. The only thing I'll say about the internet is it does diminish some dialogue between people. Is if I ask a question to somebody about, geez, I wonder what that is, they'll say, well, go Google it. You know, and geez, I was hoping for a conversation. But this is what I mean. We have to get more into dialogue as well as access the information that's right there. You don't have to get in your car, go to the library, you know, and a big effort. It's right there. It's really important for us to access different belief systems and put it together into what we can, you know, I think is more palatable at our stage of evolution. So when I, again, work with families, I say just chill out, be cool about it, just relax. And it does usually, you know, start to pass around the age 7 to 9 and somewhere in there. If it continues, as it did for me, because I had a lot of recollection of different places and times and people, and I mean, things that I would study in school, interestingly enough, especially social studies, I would read a book or an assignment and I say, well, that's not true. I would just know that I don't think that's quite right. It was very hard for me to learn a lot of information because I had my own conflict of what I felt was a more accurate memory than what I'm teaching. Well, of course, as an adult, I can say, you know, the history is written largely by the conqueror and the political climate of the day. So what really did happen in history, you know, we don't really know. So again, back to beliefs and perspectives, to stay open, because we're individuals with a very unique view of ourselves and our reality. So it's important, I think, when you're really young and you're trying to formulate your identity in this reality and figure out how it all works, that you're just comfortable and that people continue to make the experience of growing just a comfortable experience. So again, no matter what you believe, just stay open-minded and know that there are many plausible explanations that have nothing to do with any kind of psychosis or any kind of, you know, mental issues or emotional issues. It's largely in these circumstances when young people act out, it's just out of fear or frustration, you know, and again, their world is all conflicting. All these different belief systems when they're trying to figure themselves out. So I hope that that's you know, a little bit helpful for people. I say do your research, absolutely, and you know, just let kids be kids and allow them to grow into their identity in this reality, because I really do think there are many. So hope that helps. If there's any questions, I'm happy to do that. I'll just check over here on the chat room on a different screen.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hunter.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good to be here again.
I didn't see any questions either. Do you see any in chat? No? No questions in chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up in just a moment is our guest speaker, Dr. Pieter Elsen. Prior to that, let me take care of a couple of announcements. I've got, where did I put that? Coming up next week for our program. On next week's program, I'm gonna discuss 10 principles of empowered relationships. This is going to be a two-part program, so I'll cover part 1 next week and then part 2 the following week. Next week, Dr. Hunter will cover 10, or excuse me, I'm doing the 10 principles. She's doing things to know about the tarot. And then we have another guest speaker, Professor Norman Wilson, Ph.D. He is going to... Is that me? Okay. Professor Norman Wilson, Dr. Wilson, is going to be talking about we are a soul with a human body. So he will be a guest speaker for us next week, too. All right. As far as announcements go, I just wanted to thank those who made donations last week. Appreciate that. It helps keep the flame burning, as I say. And speaking of paying it forward, we've talked about that in past shows, and I would like to encourage everybody to keep that in mind as we go through this next week. Do the right thing. Try to step it up a notch. Pay it forward a little bit as you can. And if you're a member of ICMH Church or one of our schools, any of our educational programs, Empowered Recovery, Paranexus, any of those, don't forget that you can join the One Planet community, which is a Facebook-like social network. It's private. We've got about 125 members, but we got hundreds and hundreds of members. So we'd love to have you join us for interacting with like-minded people. Students can meet other students, and the list goes on. It's much like Facebook. It looks like it, operates like it. So you can join. Friends and family, if members, can also be invited to join. So visit that at One Planet Community. The one is not a number, it's the O-N-E that's spelled out, oneplanetcommunity.com. All right, as we get into our guest speaker, this is a general statement aimed at no particular person. While we are always interested in new and different perspectives, the views of our guest speakers do not necessarily represent the views of the International Church of Metaphysical Humanism. Dr. Pieter Elsen will be talking live between lives, spiritual regression. Pieter Elsen, Ph.D., was born in Holland and has lived in 5 countries and on 3 different continents. Born and educated in the Netherlands, Pieter studied 5 years with the renowned Design Academy in Eindhoven. Though he graduated with honors, Pieter felt there was more to life and set out on a 20-year journey to self-discovery that brought him to France, India, England, and finally the U.S. Pieter was a Vedic monk for 21 years, of which 11 were spent in India. While there, he studied extensively the deep and spiritual philosophy of the East. He uses this experience and knowledge extensively as a therapist and life coach counselor, integrating Western and Eastern schools of thought. After coming to the United States, he channeled his experience as a gifted motivational speaker, as well as his background in philosophy and international cultural diversity, into the field of clinical hypnotherapy and NLP. In 2014, Pieter attained his Ph.D. in metaphysical humanistic science with specializations in holistic life coaching and spiritual counseling. Dr. Pieter Elsen specializes in helping people find their true purpose in life. Dr. Elsen, welcome to the program. It's nice to have you here. Take it away.
Thank you. I hope you can see me clearly. I do not have the headset, Dr. Kelley, unfortunately. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Go ahead and start your presentation. That's great. You sound good.
Okay, and today I'm to speak about life between lives, spiritual regression. And it was interesting to hear Dr. Hunter and talking about the concept of linear time. And what's also interesting is that when we do spiritual regression work, we find ourselves basically going due to deep hypnotic experiences from a beta conscious state to an alpha deeper state and then to the theta state, where we tap slowly into a unconscious and even superconscious experience. Now, as we know in the field of subconscious sciences, that time does not exist in the unconscious and the subconscious, and also in the superconscious, time doesn't seem to be existing. So I really like the idea what Dr. Kelley Hunter said, that could there be multiple dimensions happening simultaneously. Now, a lot of people are interested in knowing where are we coming from and where are we going to. And a lot of people, they go to psychics and ask questions to gurus and masters, which I have all been doing. But what about if we could have our own spiritual experience? What about if we could go deep and deep within and have an experience of a superconscious reality ourselves that nobody else has to tell us is true or not true? Now, one of the fascinating things I've been doing quite a bit is past life regression and life between life spiritual regression. And you may have heard about Dr. Michael Newton, his world's bestseller books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. They have been delving into the research of life between life spiritual regression. Now, what is the difference between past life regression and life between life spiritual regression? Now, past life regression is when we go down in a deep hypnotic state where we not just tap into somebody's subconscious memories, but we go deeper into the unconscious, and we can go even still deeper into a superconscious state. Now, it takes a lot of skills to get somebody to really go back that deep into a hypnotic trance. And people like Edgar Casey, for example, they could do it naturally. He would lay down and tap into an Akashic record or tap into the unconscious minds of other people and retrieve information. And we need not to explain the power of Edgar Casey's work. Now, in past life regressions, basically what we do, we go back into a sequence of somebody's past and see what are the tendencies, what are the happenings that have caused somebody to be in a certain situation. We can say, well, we are the product of environmental, parental, and genetic components, which is of course all true. But if we to believe Newton's third law of motion, every action has a reaction equal and opposite, we could ask ourselves, well, why am I finding myself in this environment with these parents and with this genetic predisposition? Is that just, am I being held a bad deck of cards or a good deck of cards? We could say, well, we can extend the spectrum, we can extend the causality to go back much further, that perhaps the result of why I'm here with these set of circumstances could be causality. We can pull it back further, and past life regression explores these questions. Past life regression will help us see, is there indeed a causality behind my present situation, or is it just random? And I have found by doing many of these past life regressions, astonishing results and incredible clarification happening in people's lives, that they start to understand certain contradictions in their personality that are the result of these past life experiences. Now, but life between life spiritual regression is something different. This is where, in an extremely deep state of regression, we actually go back into a spirit dimension. So it is as if you're peeling the layers of an onion. And now we are conditioned by our environment, we are conditioned by our parental influence and our genetic code. But what if we could dislodge our soul state from kind of conditioning? That would be obviously a very liberating and spiritual experience. And because we are completely identified at this moment with this personality of Peter or Jane or Jack, and we can't seem to disconnect from it. But when we take somebody in a very deep spiritual state, in the life between life spiritual regression, we are not even particularly going back to past lives. We are bringing somebody into a superconscious state where they are in between lives. So you could technically say between you died and before you were born. Now, again, here is no time in this kind of consciousness. So technically, if we would regress you back after the death of your last life into the spirit world, you could say, well, then we are before we are born here, but in that now time, there is no such thing. We are in the now, and you have an incredible clarity in that level. I can tell you my own experience when I had my own life between life spiritual regression, I wasn't in some strange world. I was here right now, all at all levels simultaneously. And it's a bit what Dr. Vicky said, that could there be multiple worlds happening at the same time? Are these perhaps different levels of consciousness? And in my own experience, I found that to be true. I was laying in the chair in an extremely deep trance state. I saw myself laying in this body, in this chair, but at the same time, my mind was in an extremely high spiritual state where I could look back over all my past lives. I could look back over myself laying in this chair, and I was talking about myself, means Pieter, in this third person. And the counselor was asking me, the therapist was asking me questions, and I was saying, yeah, Pieter should do this, he should know that, he knows that, and blah, 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 about myself. Because I was dislodged from the limited identifications of my current conditioning. So what are the spiritual benefits from such an experience? What I have found with working with a lot of clients and also having gone through these experiences myself, is this idea that I am not just Pieter. I am a soul, a spirit moving through different experiences, through different levels of consciousness. And if we want to deal with a lot of the struggles and pains in our lives, it is extremely helpful to know that I'm not just this. This is a temporary phase. Is it unreal? No, it's like a river. You look at a river, is the river unreal? No, it's not unreal, but is it permanent? No, it's not. There's nothing permanent about a river. And so we can lift our consciousness into an extremely high state, which you can do through meditation and spiritual experiences, but most people have a lot of difficulty getting there in their meditations. So an LBL, a life between life therapist, and there are only very few. Those that are accredited with Michael Newton, there's only 218 therapists in the world that are licensed in his name to do it. And using his methodology after 30 years of research by Dr. Michael Newton, we have found this technique to be so powerful that you can basically pick anybody off the street if they are willing and take them there within 2 days into that superconscious state. And it is, I have found it to be a most brilliant kind of methodology. And Michael Newton, he has kept his work, he had kept it hidden for 30 years before publishing it, because he was a psychoanalyst and he thought, well, what the heck is this? He had been doing a lot of cases with thousands of people, and he was very hesitant to show this kind of evidence in his practice to a lot of people. And one of the miracles of this work is the consistency of experiences that people have, because he worked with literally thousands of cases, people that didn't know about his work, whose books were not yet published. And he found an incredible similarity in experiences. What is happening with people in the life between life stage, where they meet guides, they have a spiritual counsel, they can meet their soul groups. And again, he found these experiences to be similar. Now, if you can say, well, you're just stepping in your own subconscious imaginations, how could it be that there is this similarity in experiences? And finally, after 30 years of doing this work, he had the courage to publish these books, and it really resonated with millions of people. And he sold literally millions of books translated in 35 languages. And so there are a lot of wonderful therapeutic and spiritual benefits from having such an experience. Now, I would like to know if there's anybody who has any questions about this.
Anyone have any questions? Oops, wasn't me. Doesn't look like there's any questions, Dr. Elsen.
Okay.
Do you want to finish up, or are you done? I'll get out of the way if you're not done.
I think I'm done. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on and being part of this tonight. Some good information. I know that's a fascinating topic, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right. So that whole topic of the possibility of life between lives is fascinating. Is it true? Don't know, but it's fascinating, isn't it? The whole thing about consciousness and the next chapter, the realm, the next realm, the beyond the veil, whatever you want to call it. We can only hope that there's some more answers there than what we can find here. The last thing on our agenda, of course, is our soul light meditation. So while we get our soft music rounded up, this is, for those of you who are new to this, it's just a 5-minute time to relax. There's nothing weird about it. Just we're going to relax, kind of. I'm going to. I normally talk through the whole thing and help you to relax. Let me ask those of you here: do you prefer it? Some silence during the time. Anyone? You prefer? You want me to talk through the whole thing? Oh, they're saying yes. We want you to talk through the whole thing. Y'all crazy, you know that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that softly. And so as we begin, the music comes on. Take a deep breath all the way in through your nose. Hold on to it to the mental count of 3. And let it out. And just either close your eyes or pick a point straight across from you and focus on it. And just relax. This is perhaps that one time of the day when you can just relax. Everything's safe, everything's sound. Nobody wants anything. This is your time. Take another deep breath all the way in through your nose. Hold on to it for a moment and just release. It feels so good to just release. Focus on the rhythm of your breathing. When you breathe in positive energy, goodness. And when you breathe out tension, stress. Just let it go. As you continue to relax even more and more, I want you to, in your mind, visualize that beautiful ball of light, energy. It's just there above your head, floating. It's always there with you. That is your higher self. That is who you are, and it's your power. And I want you to just imagine pulling it on down into your body so that it fills you up with positive energy, with goodness. Try to feel that energy, that power within you. See your body filling up with white light. See it going on down through your feet, on into the ground so that you're grounded. Filling up your arms and your hands and your neck and your scalp and your entire body. And the beautiful thing about this energy, this light that is you, it goes to wherever it's needed. So if there's a part of your body that needs to heal, that needs to relax, that needs nurturing, it will go there. But you can also focus your energy there. Focus right on that. Imagine those tentacles of energy within you are cleaning, healing, nurturing, building you up. You must understand right here and right now that you are a powerful force. You are a special person, just like everyone. Everyone is special. Everyone has gifts, and so do you. Everyone has all the reasons in the world to feel positive about themselves, to have genuine self-esteem, to have inner validation, to set inner expectations, and to validate those yourself. Why? We don't need anyone else beside ourselves to validate us or to set expectations for us. We are enough. And while we are social creatures, we understand that we stand on our own 2 feet because we are complete within ourselves. We need us. And we choose our friends. We choose others to be around who lift us up, who are positive, and by the same token, we lift them up. We are positive, and we give them the good word of encouragement. Always. Take another deep breath, and I want to take just a brief moment of silence, and I want to send positive energy out to all those who could use it. Send it out to those you know who could use a bit of encouragement, who could use a healing. Send out that energy now. And as you continue to relax, let us all combine our energies and send that energy out to the world, to the places in the world that could use a lift, to the people in the world that could use a lift, to those who are hurting, to those who need to grow. We send out positive energy to this planet in the hopes that it will continue to do some good. In a moment, I'm going to count 1 to 3, and as I do, you'll find yourself coming back around. You'll see that beautiful ball of energy begin to slowly rise back up to its normal place. 1, coming back around just a little bit, feeling very refreshed. 2, seeing that ball of energy floating into its position just above your head. And 3, eyes open, feeling very, very positive, very, very relaxed, but feeling good. You are enough. You have every reason to believe in you, and you have the whole world ahead of you. You have your whole life ahead of you. We all do. I appreciate everyone's kind attention tonight. Those here in the live audience, those out in the global wide world web, World Wide Web. It's one of those too. Some of us are too relaxed here. So I appreciate it, and it's good to have you here, and I appreciate your support. Next week, please join us again, same time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This particular service will be available in our archives probably by tomorrow morning. It takes a while to download it, then upload it, and load it. So look for it then. You can view past services there on our video archives page. You can find that at metaphysicalhumanism.org. If you would like to check out our schools, you can see them at metaphysicsinstitute.org. That's our degree program primarily. ICHSworld.org is our standalone courses. So take a look at those. Until next week, listen, think, learn, grow, and live. Have a good night.